Namaste, Pranam, Gita Dhyana. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatva Manusandadhami Bhagavad Gite Bhavadveshinim. O Bhagavad Gita, with which Lord Narayana himself gave enlightenment to Partha. The ancient sage Vyasa included it in the Mahabharata. O Goddess, showerer of the nectar-like knowledge of non-dualism contained in your 18 chapters, O my affectionate mother, the destroyer of rebirth, I meditate upon thee. Krishna Vandana. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Son of Vasudeva, the slayer of Kansa and Chanur, extreme delight for Mother Devaki. O Lord Krishna, the supreme teacher of the universe, my salutations to you. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the 13th Adhyay of the Kshetradnya Vibhag Yoga, discrimination on the field and the knower of the field. And the Jagat Guru, Sri Krishna himself, is going to tell us about all this, the business, the magic, the thing of Kshetra and Kshetradnya. He has, of course, he has already told us in brief, to give us just an inkling, just an idea of what is Kshetra, what is Kshetradnya. He told that the Deha is the Kshetra, this body is the Kshetra, the body is the field, and the knower of this is the Kshetradnya. One who knows this concept of Kshetra is Kshetradnya. And then he also told us categorically that Kshetradnyam cha api mam. I am the Kshetradnya. Kshetradnya of how many Kshetras? Kshetradnya of sarva Kshetreshu. I am the knower of all the fields. Innumerable fields there may be in this creation. Innumerable may be the bodies, beings in this creation. But I am the Kshetradnya overall. I am the Kshetradnya of Sarva Kshetreshu. And this knowledge is the supreme-most knowledge. It is the true knowledge. That is the knowledge, Sri Krishna says. And then he told us that don't get confused on what I am telling you, because I am going to further describe, although in brief. I am not going to elaborate much on that, but whatever brief description I am going to give you, that will give you a fair idea about what is this Kshetra. Tat Kshetram Yaccha. What is this Kshetra? Yadrikcha. How does it look? What are its properties? What are its qualities? The Kshetra. That I am going to tell you. And Yad Vikari Yatascha Yat. How it gets modified. Yat Vikari. Vikari is modifications. How the different types of modifications they get into this Kshetra as a result of effect of various causes. Yatascha Yat. Yataha cha Yat. And because of which causes? What type of modifications they take place in this Kshetra? That I am going to tell you. So these three things about the Kshetra. What is this Kshetra? Tat Kshetram Yaccha. And what is that Kshetra? Ya Drikcha. How does it look like? That is the second point he is going to tell us. What are its properties? What are its qualities? What are its attributes? How does it look like? Yat Drikcha. Yat Vikari Yatascha Yat. And how different causes they give an effect to create the modifications in these kshetras, in these fields. These three things about the Kshetra. And also I am going to tell you, listen from me in brief pertaining to Sacha Yaha. Who is he? Who is this Kshetradnya? And Yat Prabhavascha. What is his power? What is his authority? What is his stature like? That also you listen from me in brief. This is what Sri Krishna had told us in the third shloka. Tat kshetram yaccha yadrikcha yad vikari yatascha yat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samasena me shrunu. Now, having given this short introduction as to what lies ahead in this adhyaya, now Sri Krishna is telling how this topic has already been dealt by others. This topic has already been dealt. All the Vedas and Upanishads and the Puranas, they have talked about Kshetra, Kshetradnya in various ways. In various ways this has been described, in various ways this has been chanted. And what are those ways? Sri Krishna is telling, ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak brahmasūtrapadaiścaiva hetumadbhirviniścitaiḥ. Krishna says this particular thing that I am going to tell you in brief. The Rishis have sung about it. ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ, and not in just one or two songs. Rishis have sung about this truth, about this true knowledge. They have sung it in many ways. There are so many ways of singing the glories of the Kshetra, Kshetradnya. Rishis have done it in the yore. And chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak, in different chanda. Chanda is a poetic meter that is used in the construction of the verses. Chanda. There are different types of chanda. Like there is Anushtupa chanda. Anushtupa chanda. Most of the Bhagavad Gita Shloka, they come under that Anushtupa chanda. Chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. All different types of chants. Various distinct chants. You can sing these glories in certain specific standardized way through the chandas. There is Anushtupa chanda, there is a Trishtuba chanda, there is a Gayatri chanda. So these different poetic meters, the sages, the Rishis, they have used to sing this particular glory, the glory of Kshetra, Kshetradnya. Now just to tell how the chandas differ. Now most of the shloka, as I told you, they are in the Anushtupa chanda. Anushtupa chanda is, it is in a verse. If you divide the verse in segments, the first line will have 2 segments comprising of 8 syllables. The second line, the second part of the verse will also have 2 segments of 8 syllables each. For example, let us take example of this very shloka that we are reading today. ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ. Now when we sing it, we give a tone to it. We give some kind of a intonation to it. ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. Now when we analyze this shloka, analyze this verse, ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ. These are the 8 syllables of the first segment of the first line. The second segment of this line, chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. The last word is a half ka. It is not complete ka. It is pṛthak. It is not complete. Therefore, the second segment also has 8 syllables. The first segment of the second line, brahmasūtrapadaiścaiva, 8, and hetumadbhirviniścitaiḥ, brahmasūtrapadaiścaiva 8. Now, that's how the Anushtupa Chanda, it gets formed. It gets formed of 8 syllables in 4 segments. ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. See how there is a very a particular way of reading this chanda, Anushtupa Chanda. You can't read, you read it in any other intonation. It won't give that impression. It won't give that satisfaction of singing it. Then say, for example, the Trishtuba Chanda, the entire, most of the Vishvarupa Darshana Yoga was in Trishtuba Chanda. Trishtuba Chanda is like Anushtuba has 8 syllables per segment. In Trishtuba Chanda, they add 3 more syllables. It is a longish verse. It is a longish verse with 11 syllables in 4 segments. 11 syllables in the first segment of the first line, second segment of the first line, first segment of the second line, second segment of the second line. So likewise, there are 44 syllables used in Trishtuba Chanda. Just take an example of this 23rd shloka of the Vishvarupa Darshan. How the intonation varies by addition of the 3 syllables to that shloka. Rupam mahatte bahuvaktra netram mahabaho bahubahu rupadam bahudaram bahudanshtra karalam drashtva lokaha pravyatitastathaham. See the difference in the way it is sung, the difference in the intonation. So Sri Krishna says that Rishis of the yore, they have put this knowledge in various forms of songs using various chandas, distinctive poetic meteors, and brahmasūtrapadaiścaiva, and in the passages, in so very many passages indicating of the Brahman. And these passages, they are not just carelessly taken, or they are just not haphazardly put there. These passages have been created hetumadbhirviniścitaiḥ, with specific reasoning, with specific purpose. They have created these passages, these meteors, these verses. Hetumadbhirviniścitaiḥ, giving a certain conclusion, giving a certain convincing reasoning to that. It is not that this has been, all these verses in the Vedas and Upanishads and the Puranas and the scriptures, they have been created just like that at the whims and manners of anyone. No, there is a specific science it has gone behind it. They have been done with a specific purpose to bring out certain effect while singing it in those meteors, while singing in those chandas, while distinctively explaining the passages indicative of Brahman, the ultimate, the Satchidananda Brahman. And these are so very conclusive. There is no haphazard ending to it. There is no confusion that lingers on after singing these verses. These are very convincing and they are thorough. So this is what Krishna has said, that what I am going to tell you, this has already been described, sung by Rishis, sung by sages of the yore in those beautiful poetic meteors, and indicative of Brahman. The passage is fully indicative of Brahman, and there is a specific meaning to it. There is a specific reason with which they have been created, and they have been created in such a way that all these passages, all these verses, they are so very conclusive. No doubt remains after listening to those verses. The sages have fully utilized the sciences and arts of the revelation of truth, which remains unaffected by the passage of time. Like all these verses that we have read so far, their value still remains even in spite of so many millennia, thousands of years since these passages have been created. They remain unaffected. They remain true. They remain equally effective. What effect they had thousands of years back, today, even today, after thousands of years, when we deliberate upon those, we do get a certain kind of knowledge. We do get to know something about the Brahman. The value of truth does not go down for its being clothed in imperfect language. Even if the language is imperfect, when it comes to the description of Kshetra, Kshetradnya, of course, the Rishis have done a great thing of singing it or putting it in the chandas and singing it in melodious tones. But even if the language is imperfect, the truth doesn't get hampered. The ultimate truth, the eternal truth, does not depend on the type of language that is being used, even if it is imperfect language. For example, if a child cannot utter complete sentences, isn't it? Maybe, if he wants milk, he cannot ask, if he's talking any Indian language, he cannot ask his mother, I want doodh. He may be saying, dudu, do. But mother understands. So that the ultimate, because that is the real thing that child is expressing from its heart to the mother. So even if when it comes to understanding of the Brahman, even if the language is imperfect, doesn't matter. The truth remains the truth. And Sri Krishna says the Rishis have done such a wonderful thing of singing it in various ways, in using various chandas, but with a distinct mention of the Brahman. brahmasūtrapadaiścaiva, putting clearly what Brahman is. While the truth does not go down, even if it is in imperfect language, the Rishis have taken care to expound it in the most refined and appropriate language. See the greatness of the sages of our past. How beautifully they have used this. They have developed this entire science of putting the verses in specific poetic meteors. The precision of expression has been augmented by them with music. Now just see, listen, see when we read this shloka simply without any intonation, ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. It carries that rhythm, isn't it? But when it is put to some kind of tone, ṛṣibhirbahudhā gītaṃ chandobhirvividhaiḥ pṛthak. You know how it becomes so pleasant to the ears to listen to grasp it. So first of all, putting it in the meteor, putting it in the chanda, in that anushtupa chanda that they have used here, anushtupa chanda, and then giving it that musical intonation. How wonderful these Rishis were. Such a great service they have done for all the future generations to come. Accurate language is by itself appealing to the intellect, but when music is combined, joint appeal to the head and heart becomes doubly effective. Now it is not only that the meaning is going to the brain, meaning of the shloka is going to the brain, but the intonation, the way it is sung, it touches our heart. It touches our inner core, and therefore it carries much better effect. When music is combined with it, the joint appeal to the head and heart becomes doubly effective. Music is by itself very powerful and fascinating to all the beings. So this is what Sri Krishna says, that Rishis have done such a great job. They have already described it in very many ways by singing these glories. And they have also used all those different poetic meters, different chanda, because of which they could put it to that beautiful musical intonation. So this is what Sri Krishna tells about how Rishis have helped get into this kind of a study of the verses. So many sources are available for these different verses about Kshetra, Kshetradnya. Vedas are there, Puranas are there, Upanishads are there, the Bhagavad Gita itself is there. And Sri Krishna says that Rishis have done such a great service. They have already explained. They have already sung the glories of this Kshetra, Kshetradnya, indicative of the Brahman, and which can be conclusively understood. All these things, they have been created with a specific purpose. These are not randomly or haphazardly created. Hetumadbhirviniścitaiḥ, with certain specific purpose, not in a haphazard way, and therefore they are so very conclusive. Listening to them, there is no confusion. Now, what Sri Ramakrishna has to talk about this kind of expression of the glories of the Kshetra, Kshetradnya in songs and meteors. Sri Ramakrishna says, Sage Narada was endowed with a penetrating intellect and an all-absorbing divine love. Narada is one of the greatest example of such rishis that Sri Krishna has mentioned in this shloka. Devarshi. And Sri Ramakrishna says, Narada was endowed with a penetrating intellect and an all-absorbing divine love. Therefore, the Narada Bhakti Sutras that he has created, that has got a tremendous appeal as far as the devotional singing is concerned. Devotees ought to evolve after this pattern. That is what Sri Ramakrishna says. Devotees ought to evolve in this pattern, that using the intellect and the heart, not just scholarly words, give a poetic intonation to those scholarly words, like Narada Muni has done, like Devarshi Narada has done, and that's what Sri Ramakrishna says. The moment you do, you bring this, you make this fusion of the intelligent words with the musical intonation, the effect is absolutely wonderful. So this is Sri Krishna's teaching to us in the 4th shloka of the Kshetra Kshetradnya Vibhag Yoga, that yes, what I am going to tell you, this has already been deliberated upon. Rishis have sung it in different musical intonations, using different poetic meters, and clearly describing what the Brahman is, with no confusion, with full authority. And this has been meticulously done with certain purpose and not randomly or haphazardly done. So what further Krishna is going to tell us about what these rishis have sung, that we will come to know in the subsequent readings. Till then, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Sri Ramakrishna. Jai Thakur. Jai Ma. Jai Swami.